Hey everyone, RemanX here, and I know I haven't made a video in a while because I thought I would just gather some thoughts here, and we're going to start with a lot of rapidly dropping videos, including some final ISO suggestions, some more details about teams, and kind of an update on what's going on over here with me. Just really quickly, guys, I put a lot of thought into this. This is going to be the ultimate farming guide, the ultimate guide to how to utilize your resources, and more importantly, the ultimate guide to survive the Age of Apocalypse. And we're going to start with some breakdowns and really give you guys the 12 teams that I think should be at the core of your roster to survive both the Age of Apocalypse and get set up for Crucible. Now, they're going to overlap a lot in a lot of different ways, but let's get right to it. So first things first, one of the things you're going to find is they're going to check a couple of boxes. They're going to be both either Scourge teams, Raid teams, etc., so that they are a high priority for farming and availability. We're going to start with the number one team I think you should be working on, and that's Bionic Avengers. Now, Bionic Avengers isn't farmable, but this is going to be the team that's going to probably be the core team for getting the Death Scourge. So with the characters specifically available here, as being the tech raid team, I kind of wanted to give you guys an also team for those of you guys who can't get the rest of this team built up. Maybe you don't have access to it and you didn't survive the events. We're going to talk about these because each one of these characters, with the exception of Doom, is mentioned elsewhere. But Doom is one of those characters that is probably a flex character, much like some others that may be left off this list. But again, when you don't see them necessarily here, I would definitely avoid taking them above G14. Most characters, I think you should probably pause at G14 if they're on this list, with the exception of the Horseman team, and we'll get into that in a few moments. All right, so Bionic Avengers, clearly, a raid team, checks the boxes for the Death Scourge. Definitely something you want to get to. You can see the tech team now. I have Kate Bishop here. You can also add a Ravager in T'Challa, but that is going to be your tech raid team also, because again, these characters overlap, and some of them are going to be important other modes, just like Kestrel. Now, if you can't get Kestrel because she's not farmable, one thing you want to do is take a look at specifically. Sometimes there's event orbs, etc., to get her. So there are options to get her outside of that. She's a premium orb exclusive, and I do know that if you're a newer player that doesn't have a full roster, you should assign some time to start farming. And specifically doing the blitz for the premium orbs to get additional. Don't go too crazy because you'll need the red stars, but especially characters that you can't utilize in the red star blitz. The premium blitz is there for you to allow you to be able to get some of the characters up on your roster to actually use in the red star blitz. So don't forget about that. All right, next team, and again, this is based on shelf life over here, based on release schedule. Now, the Bionic Avengers newest team, the Web Warriors, are the Scourge team for the Pestilence Scourge. More importantly, they are a great raid team. They're decent in war and war defense. They can give your opponent headaches, even though they're largely solved with the addition of Bionic Avengers. Maybe Bionic Avengers are used elsewhere. And so, honestly, no brainer there. Next team we're going to talk about is Secret Avengers. Now, Secret Avengers is a bit of a challenge here because you also have to use Shang-Chi. You can use other characters that are skill, but these are the best characters to get through skill, even though their shelf life is lower and they're starting to feel their age in the raids as you progress higher and higher levels. They're still a good team. I think the problem was they built the skill nodes with too much RNG. But these are what I recommend for skill: Secret Avengers with Shang-Chi and Kestrel. Now, here's the problem. We're going to talk about the next team, which I think is next team for survivability, is going to be the Mutant team for the raid team. Now, pump your brakes. Okay? We're going to talk about this. I think we're leaning towards Mutant being the next release here. And they're likely going to be a raid team. Now, I could be off the mark, but I doubt it. A lot of indicators are out there saying, pump your brakes here. See, instead of waiting, unnecessarily, I wouldn't put too much into them, because when the announcement comes out, we'll have some more information. But they are probably still good enough to use and are probably, wherever, if you made that choice, you will have extra resources to hold here. Now, again, if you're in other brackets, I will say top end players are probably using X-Men on the first two nodes and saving the cooldowns, because of the fact that the boss node is very difficult. And to avoid a 3 or 4 shot, we use unlimited with full cooldowns and then follow up with Axemen for an almost guaranteed 2 shot. So that's something that I want to make sure people understand. We're going to move into this next one. This is going to be the no-brainer for Mystic, right? Except for the fact that it's not a no-brainer because you have a Horseman character. More importantly, you also have characters that are not in the game. So for the Mystic raid team, I wanted to talk about a couple of things. This is kind of a mix and match team. Obviously, Dormammu is going to be... There's very few players still in Marvel Strike Force that have Dormammu. And this is, again, the team that I'm going to recommend putting G16 on. All right? The rest of these characters are going to be, especially not Dagger, are going to be tough choices if you're trying to push them into Dark Dimension 5. Because we've got a lot of characters here that overlap Origin Gear, which is a big deal. You know, Origin Gear is still one of the bigger bottlenecks. So we're going to talk about Crucible teams next. We're going to talk about Crucible teams. We're going to start with Unlimited X-Men. Now, the Unlimited X-Men here are obviously still unfarmable, but because they're utilized for Apocalypse or the top of the list, people may have Rogue, and you'll be able to use Rogue in hybrids with some other characters, especially if you don't have these characters. So just remember that hybrid teams do exist, especially with other hero mutants that are being utilized in this. Now, this is another important thing to remember. Only Spider Weaver has been announced as a requirement for Apocalypse. Now, this is in addition to the Horseman teams. This is for the 5th saga to get through his special event. There's a 5th team here. So the anchor is going to be Spider Weaver. That's the only one we know. There could be some other in game. I don't know. But that's going to be your anchor here. So building up her team is because they're so good in Crucible, even with an additional team we're going to go down the list on, is going to be helpful here. She is a G16 character, if you can afford the Mystic after you get your Darkhold up. But definitely you want to consider that because you can unlock additional MILF abilities, etc. And the rest of her team hasn't been revealed. So bring her up at G16 isn't as important right now. But you probably even at G14 or G15, she's insane. At lower stars, she's performing very well in both Arena, Crucible. Take a look at some of the folks like Dogbert who are showcasing that on his channel. All right. More importantly, you can see that we've kind of, gone very light spending, free to play here on the account. And we have Spider-Man here, $20.99, and he's exceptional. Another team here that we're going to talk about, and I don't think you want to build them up to these levels. For a lot of older players, you have these characters that they were the original Apex raid team, and I joke because they never really hit that mark. But they were okay in war. Now they're kind of okay everywhere. They're fast enough to really kind of build around. They're phenomenal in Crucible. Probably the 3rd overall Crucible team right now, specifically designed for Crucible. But I will say that they're definitely usable and potentially key to winning in victories, depending on what you're seeing on defense. If you're a Kraken, you're probably not using these guys as much, except for a cleanup after a few attempts. We're going to talk about this. Young Avengers, guys. Young Avengers are a Crucible team. That's really kind of where they really highlight as a full team. There's really not a lot of places to use them, with the exception of Crucible and Tower. But I would never recommend building characters for Tower. They are also the best Scourge team we've ever had inside of Marvel Strike Force. They made it so that even the worst players could get a 7-star Rogue if they leveled up their Young Avengers. We saw a lot of people do exceptional with limited amounts of resources on this team. They are built to last, and they're phenomenal. They're still a headache in war defense for a lot of teams, but more importantly, they are just a good overall team, and both on offense, defense, and in war, in some environments. So the question is, do I take any of these guys to G16? Well, I'm saying don't G16 anything but the Horseman. People do want to bring her to G16 because of the fact that she is, a phenomenal character, but she soaks up so much biogear that if you're looking at Gamma, you're not going to want to do that here. So next team here is going to be, scroll down here. All right, next team here is Hero Asgard. Now, the Hero Asgard were the exceptional team to utilize inside of the Scourge. Now, they were anchored by, really, Thor did a lot of the heavy lifting, but I wouldn't say anything bad about Mighty Thor, as she quickly swapped buffs around, and Valkyrie's passive triggering when either Sif or Heimdall died was the key to getting through. They were a really well-built team. When we analyzed them, we knew they were probably going to be the highlight of the Scourge. You're gonna want a character to die, and then as time went on, they would just build up and smush their opponents. So we've done a decent job evaluating these teams here, and hopefully giving you guys guidance to which teams to build. But we're doubling down on building them. Again, don't need G16. The higher the Thor, the better the team overall operates, but don't ignore Mighty Thor and Valkyrie for their overall sustain and making sure that they get their passives off. Another team here, we're gonna do this, and I missed a team here. I gotta add it really quickly, but we won't miss it out. RemanX. Now, the problem with RemanX is it's gonna have the same problem that you have with Adam Warlock, in that you're kind of gated by the old legendary system. The old legendary system meant that you needed to have characters at 5, 6, or 7 stars, ISO, and potentially additional legendaries with Nick Fury. Still, this team isn't also in many other categories, and in fact that they can beat Darkhold and have so many things they can counter in war specific. They're phenomenal, and I think they deserve a mention here. Same thing with Infinity Watch. So we're gonna put a team in here that's actually shown a little bit better than I really anticipated. I left it off the list because I wasn't quite sure yet. But we're gonna lock in the Gamma, because you have to build Gamma to get Apocalypse. More importantly, even though they're not just like Unlimited, they're not the best raid solution. They're an also option where they still work to a certain degree depending on what levels you're at. If you built this team up in any way, shape, or form, you're gonna find that they're annoying on Crucible defense. They're losing to Uncanny X-Men, but you notice Uncanny X-Men aren't on this list right now. But that's not the case in War, where they're pretty much only losing occasionally to Mirrors. And even that isn't set in stone, as it depends on sometimes randomness, placement, ISO selection, etc. So this team is exceptional. So we have to kind of add that to this. So realistically, those are your 12 teams after RemanX, and the rest are kind of, so Infinity Watch. Now, Infinity Watch is really one of the best teams in the game, but they're not the best team in any game mode. So they're really hard to really recommend. Jubilee, with Pimtech being absolute trash in other game modes and utility, it's really hard to justify the investment level to put in that team to get it. So we're going to talk about that. So Underworld, another team over here, probably same as we're going to talk about Shadowlands. They're good. They're going to help you. Probably a couple of those characters are going to wind up being on your team with the Tangled Web. It may change as time goes on, but right now, kind of nasty with them and almost unbeatable, with the exception of mirror matches in that. So right now, absolutely well-designed Tangled Web Crucible team getting you some victory. So that's really it. There really isn't a lot of elsewhere. So that's 12 core teams with these flex teams on the bottom here that are really all you need to work on. And then, like I said, Axemen are likely going to be replaced by a new Mutant raid team, which seems to be what is being geared up towards. If you guys have any questions in the comments, we're definitely going to make more videos. I do things so you don't have to, and I have really dropped down to another alliance here, and they're eye-opening. I basically, my alliance separated, and I chose not to go in the direction of massive competition anymore, because I think I was losing a little bit of touch with the community here, and it's eye-opening being at the level I'm at, where we're not doing full clear wars, and you're seeing people throw things on defense because it's just what they have. And it's really kind of a new approach to the game I'm trying to take for you. So I do things so you don't have to. And I'm in a Platinum 3 Alliance in a top 1,000 alliance. Well, top 2,000, really 1,500. We'll say 1,200, right? 1,214 is our alliance. Really good group of people here who are recruiting specifically from chat. So stay tuned. There's going to be a lot more to follow. If you guys like this content, make sure you guys like and subscribe. Love you much.